proceed.
Voted that the town amends section 7.10.2 of the zoning bylaw related to hotel and motel room limits by adding a new item 3, providing for authorized modification of room limits as shown in Article 14 of the warrant for the town meeting.
Is there a second? Second. May I have a planning board report, sir?
If voted, this article would amend the hotel and motel room limits in section 7.10.2 to give the special permit granting authority, the select board, the ability to allow more than 45 rooms in B, B2, B3, I, and I2 zones, or more than 30 rooms in the B2A zone, where the hotel or motel is a component of a project that redevelops or reuses historic structures. Since a 45-room or 30-room limit could make a redevelopment or reuse projects economically infeasible, this amendment would encourage the redevelopment or reuse of existing historic structures, the goal of the master plan. There would still be a special permit requirement, so there is still the need for public hearing process. Also, there is no guarantee that a proposal including more rooms would be approved by the granting authority, and the granting authority would still have the ability to impose a room limit or other conditions it deems necessary. For the purpose of this proposed bylaw, historic structures are those that are listed on the state or national register of historic places, a designated property in a historic district, or a property that is determined by the Great Barrington Historical Commission as historically, culturally, or architecturally significant to the town. This amendment is not in response to any specific proposal. Rather, it anticipates that in the current tourist-oriented market, the future redevelopment of mills or other large historic structures may involve hotel uses. The planning board discussed the proposed zoning amendment and received questions and comments from the public in attendance. A citizen asked the planning board to consider an amendment to encourage single-room occupancy of hotel rooms. After detailed discussion, the planning board decided it was not in keeping with the purpose of the original proposal and decided not to include the citizen's proposal. There was also discussion of how buildings receive historic designation. There was a question about whether to have a room limit on historic hotel projects, but the planning board decided the granting authority, if it deemed necessary, would be able to limit the rooms as part of the special permit. The planning board voted unanimously to recommend that the town meeting approve this amendment.
Thank you. Before we do discussion, the vote on Article number 9, the school budget, yes 242, no 162, passes. Now let's discuss. Mr. Mahoney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Rich Dehoney, 74 Blue Hill Road. I have a couple comments on this ordinance, but before I do, I want to comment on the planning board. And that last ordinance and this one are perfect examples of how a municipality thinks forward and plans its future. We have the best planning board going in Berkshire County. Jonathan Hankin, Malcolm Fick, and the rest of the gang are doing such a service for us. They do it quietly, and it should really be thanked. And I think this ordinance is a good step in the right direction, but I don't think it's enough. And I don't have any specific proposals here for tonight, but my request is that the planning board work with the finance committee over the next year to evaluate the effect of this room cap has on our bottom line. We just spent an hour debating our school budget, the most important function of our community, and we're trying to scrape together nickels to do it. But the state allows us to tax 3 things. We can't do income tax here. We can't do all kinds of fancy sales tax. We can tax our real estate, which is killing us all. We can tax meals, and we can tax hotel rooms. The only thing we limit is hotel rooms. One of the few things we can tax is what we limit in a tourist community. I think for the sake of our bottom line, we have to give real consideration to lifting that cap. If you look at neighboring communities like Lenox and even like Lee and Pittsfield, the amount that they get from the tax is a boon. One more hotel of an appropriate size could make that gentleman's motion of $500,000. We really have to look at it and think hard about it as a community, whether that cap's appropriate for us. But I do encourage supporting this tonight. It's a move in the right direction.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Own the Brighcliff Motel at Windmill Mountain. We are not allowed to vote because we're British citizens, so sorry about that. But we moved here 3 years ago from London to renovate the Brighcliff, which is a 1960 motor lodge with 16 rooms. In the process, we've trebled the tax that we pay to the town because it's going quite well so far. We have a vested interest in this issue, but my big vested interest is in seeing Great Barrington remain a town that is a small town populated by small business. I think this rule opens the door to corporations. I believe this variance was introduced in the first place to avoid that very thing, to protect the fairgrounds. And I think, no corporation gets up in the morning and says, what can we do to help the community today, in my experience of 30 years working in London. We understand the impulse behind the variance, but I think there are plenty of other things that can go into those buildings besides hotel rooms. And we would ask that the many, many small B&Bs and hotels in Great Barrington be protected by the council. And also, corporate hotel design groups try to keep everybody in the hotel. That's the point. They have restaurants in the hotel, they have bars in the hotel, they do breakfast in the hotel. We send a lot of people to local restaurants, bars, spas, all other kinds of businesses. So, thank you.
Yeah, Andrew Blackman, 14 Gilmore. I can agree with much of what the woman has said, but what if we were to get a corporation or a company that wasn't evil? What if we wanted to have, let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Red Lion Inn come down and reuse one of our properties? We couldn't without passing this. And don't forget, if you do pass this, it still has to go through a very rigorous control process. So it's not something that just happens overnight. There'll be a lot of debate before someone's granted authority.
Thank you.
Would you give your name and address, please?
Oh, my name is David Magnini. My official residence is at 334 Main Street. And I'm running for moderator, by the way, and I hope you're all vote for me on May 13th. What I'm here for tonight right now, however, is this article. I went to the public hearing on this article, and I'm the one that proposed the SRO as referred to it. It actually contains different text for what I have here. And I have a similar new improved version here that I would like to submit to the town meeting. I'd like to read it to you.
Are you submitting an amendment?
Amendment, yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is an amendment to the Article 14 regarding room limits. Be amended under section 710(2), room limits to include the following new items of conditions and regulations. 4. The number of rooms that are counted towards the maximum limit in the zoning district listed in 7.10.2 of this bylaw shall, in addition to the usual hotel rooms, shall include at least 3 hotel rooms that are designated for occupancy by one person. These single occupancy hotel rooms shall be counted as one room for the first 3 rooms, and as one room for each 2 additional single occupancy hotel rooms. Thereafter, the single occupancy hotel rooms. The planning board may impose conditions which encourage the building of these single occupancy hotel rooms while meeting the need of availability for one person hotel room at an affordable price on a regular basis. These conditions may include restrictions on prices for single occupancy hotel rooms in exchange for permission to build additional units in accord with the accounting procedures described above, to provide an increased availability of single occupancy hotel rooms for all persons who need single occupancy hotel rooms. That's the amendment.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second? Motion been made, second. Any discussion? Remmel?
I'd like to
You don't have the floor, David.
Good evening. Chris Rembold, Great Barrington Town Planner, 16 Castle Hill Avenue. It's true, as the chairman reported, and as David suggested, the planning board did hear this proposed amendment at its public hearing in March. It did consider it, and it did consider that it may have some merit, but it was not to the purpose of the proposal that you have here tonight. And the planning board discussed the possibility of considering it in a future year. So it did not entertain it at the public hearing and did not include it in the motion presented tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
In addition, at the public hearing, three of the current hotel managers were there. We asked them if any of them would be interested in having such a single room occupancy in their hotel, and all three said no. So just, we didn't idly discard this. We discussed it in great length. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, raise your card. Opposed? Amendment is defeated. We'll go back to David. I need a copy of that, please. We'll go back to the original motion. Is there any further discussion?
Once again, we on the planning board felt that this allowing maybe creative reuse of some of our older buildings, historic buildings, could potentially provide a vehicle for those buildings to be reused. We've been, as the lady said earlier, we've been very concerned, since I've been on the planning board, about opening the door to larger hotels in Great Barrington because of the change of the nature of the town that it might provoke. I'm sympathetic to Mr. Mahoney's comment about taxes, but we have to decide what kind of town we want. Do we want big hotels or not? That's why the planning board is, in this case, it's just for the reuse of historic buildings.
Thank you.
Jim Stark, 99 Main Street. There's at least one hotel on Stockbridge Road that's more than 45 rooms already. And so I'd like to get an explanation of why there's a limit of 45 and this is a new hotel. And that one is
It actually occurred during a window when there was no hotel room limit. We had a room limit at one time. That room, we came to the town meeting to change that number. The number was voted down by the town meeting, so we had no limit for a while. During that period of time, the Quality Inn was able to come in and up the number of rooms they had. After that, we changed the limit to the 45 we had now. So it got in through a window when there was no limit.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. So, Jack, this is only for the reuse of our empty historic buildings.
Correct. This only applies to a building like the Mills in Housatonic, or the Searles building, or the Searles Castle, or any other designated historic building that could be turned into a hotel that could have more than 45 rooms. That's all. But the select board would have to approve that hotel being constructed in that historic building. So it just allows them to come forward with a proposal.
Thank you.
Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14, raise your card. All those opposed? Motion is carried by a 2/3 vote.